Hello and welcome back to Superliminal Podcast, and this is part 2 of the incredible conversation that I've been having with George Kavassilis. Now, if you haven't seen part 1, please do go back and watch that first, because it segues directly into what we're going to be talking about today. So if you haven't come across George, or as a refresher, George Kavassilis is an extraterrestrial contactee, writer and remembrance coach. His contact experiences began as a small child, and he has had many subsequent experiences since then with extraterrestrials, both positive and negative. And in 2003, he had a remarkable experience with his galactic family when he met extraterrestrials from the Lyran and the Pleiadian star systems, where he was made aware of the fractal nature of the universe. He was taken to the Pentagon, where he was subjected to torture and met with former President George Bush Sr. and has been on both Australian and US secret space programs, both for the Navy and the Air Force. George is also in contact with a huge cross-section of non-human intelligences, his own greater being and other concurrent incarnations he works with to help individuals like us to integrate back into unity and experience reality in the natural way of life and the natural way of love, free from the confines of the false God matrix and God with a little g, really coming from our heart, soul, essence. This conversation in part 2, it's a biggie. And it's probably going to be provoking for many people, because George explains why the pineal gland, chakras and the Kundalini are actually unhelpful. In fact, they're more than unhelpful. They are keeping us circulating in the false God matrix. And from my perspective, it's actually a trap. Now, it's not to say that they're evil, and there are many, many helpful things. A lot of people have found it very beneficial as a stepping stone into the connection with the true self and all that is from the heart, soul, essence. But I think it's really important that we're armed with the information to know what's going on with that. And I think another important point to emphasize is that this is, I want to make it clear that this is in no way a judgment on anyone who's been doing great work to help other people heal using chakras, pineal and Kundalini. And nor is George implying, or am I implying, that we're better or worse than anybody else. It's just humanity needs to be aware of this information and why it's essential and why it's so important. How these systems operate. And the reason for that is so that we can then make a considered choice as to whether or not we choose to keep working with them based on what's next for us in our soul journey, which George will explain in the conversation. So it is controversial, and at times it might feel a bit in your face and super provoking. And if you do feel that as you're listening to it, then I invite you to put that part of your ego that's feeling provoked to one side for now. Feel into the conversation with complete curiosity, as though you've just dropped into this reality and it's all new information that you know nothing about, with no connection to anything from the past, and really feel it from the heart as much as possible. And even if by the end of it you feel, do you know what, that's not for me, that's not my path, I'm going to continue down the path of working with the Pineal, Kundalini and chakra, then great. But feel into the information with a super, super, super open mind. But that said, if you do feel a thread tugging at you from the heart that resonates with this information, then I highly encourage you to check out George's work on his website, which I will put in the show notes somewhere down there. Or you can watch some of his amazing interviews for free with the wonderful Dr. Michael Salla on his superb Exopolitics Today show. I think George has got about 6 interviews on there, ranging from round about sort of April, May time of 2024. And it is worth listening to them in order, if you can. So that's it for now. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this, and I will see you in a second. Shifting gears then slightly, George, I want to connect back to something that we spoke about at the very beginning of
Hmm.
this conversation. There is, at the moment, clearly lots of stuff going on in the sky, some of which is genuine in terms of our star family, and some of which is not genuine, which is synthetic in the metaphor that we've been using. What's your view on the disclosure process? And I would love that to be a little segue into the matrix as such, which is what everybody calls this fake reality that we live in. Because I was having a really wonderful conversation with a close friend of mine. We have some lovely deep chats every 2 or 3 weeks, and she's just beginning to realize that actually the matrix doesn't just and when I say the matrix, of course, what I'm talking about is the imperial mechanism. It doesn't just exist here on this planet. Everyone thinks, once we bust out of the global control, then that's it, we're free. It's so much bigger than that. And I would love us to get on into that in the last part of this conversation, the three levels of imposition. But before we do that, I would love you to share your view on disclosure in terms of our star family, ETs, the imperial ETs that are also trying to connect, as you mentioned that at the start of the conversation. Yeah, what are your thoughts that you'd love to share with the audience on that?
Yeah, that's a big question. Where do I begin with that? Crikey. Um, yeah, it's such a big field right now. It's opened up. It's gotten bigger and wider. It's
Yeah.
lovely. It's a good thing. It's just yeah. It's in the space of disclosure. In that space, um, there's a war going on. It really, unfortunately, disclosure is a space of war, conflict. It's a clash of ideologies. It's an arena. Let's call it an arena. The arena of disclosure. Let's call it that. Is right now there's people that are trying their best, like myself, to just tell it how it is and do it in a way that can be assertive enough and potent enough to crack the programming, the mind control, and bring people back to reality. But at the same time, not do it to the degree where it becomes combative. So to be able to implement the force of the communication, yeah, the assertive nature of it, the natural authority that I have to be in this world, to be sharing this, because I do. I have a lot of natural authority. And I know it. And they know that I do, and they know that I do. Okay, so you can imagine the gamesmanship that's going on. All right. Because when you do, and when you know that you do, you emanate a frequency in the matrix, and they can see you. Then they come for you in many different ways. It's really funny. One of the most subtle ways they
Come for
come
you,
at
they
you.
have.
Hey?
And come for you, they have.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's been ongoing war for most of my life, 30, 40 years of my life, easy. And and yeah, I won't go into that. But so think of it, disclosure arena, and it's getting very interesting in that space. And there's a lot of conflict, a lot of different ideologies and philosophies bouncing up against each other. So it's a battle of ideologies, basically. And there's different expressions of imperial ideologies in that space, and both planetary and off-world. And I'm coming in with the creational viewpoint from creation itself. So I'm in conscious relationship with Mama Sophia, with Helios the sun, with the planets of the solar system, because they're all living intelligences. Everything in the universe is. Even that is a living intelligence, if you know how to connect to it, right? It's just a mouse, right? Big deal, whoop-de-doo. But it's a living intelligence. See, it exists in this universe. Therefore, At the fundamental base level, in the unified field, this is made of the same stuff you and I are made of in the universe. It's like removing a block of ice or freezing a piece of ice floating on the ocean, right? And taking that and saying, thinking that that's not made of the same stuff that the ocean is made out of. Okay? We're all made of the same stuff in the unified field of life, in the unity. No separation, no disconnect. Okay? So these different intelligences are coming in, imperial intelligences as well, different empires out there. And basically what we're on the receiving end of down here is factional fighting, wars between empires out there. As above, so below. And as below, so above. Right? So the wars we have here, the conflicts that we have here, the war that's raging in the arena of disclosure is the war between factions, imperial factions. Ones that want to prevent us from awakening and evolving. Yeah, it's called arrested development. It's also known as subjugation, subjugating humanity, seeking dominion over, and controlling the course and destiny of our evolution. And there's other groups that want to liberate and emancipate humanity from those imperial constraints. And that's what I'm here for, to help liberate and emancipate humanity from all imperial narratives, from all programs, whether imperial or not, that hold us back, that try to constrain us in any way, shape or form at all. I'm here to expose it all of it. Yeah.
One of those mechanisms that is a lovely little segue into, it's probably going to upset a lot of people, but we don't care about that here, is not just in the New Cage religion, which it seems to have become, but generally there are some very, very well-meaning people out there who, unfortunately, are totally oblivious to the fact that we've touched on this at the start of the conversation, is that the chakras, the third eye, pineal gland, and Kundalini are actually part of that imperial control mechanism, which almost nobody is aware of, and even fewer people would want to believe is true. Now, for me, it's absolutely true, because when I heard you say that, immediately from here, not from here, I felt, oh yeah, I just got it, because was a truism. And I was chatting to my partner about this recently. And the friend I mentioned earlier as well, who I have lovely chats with every 2-3 weeks, was that I think it was the very start of 2022. For about 4 months, I'd been reading some books and watching some information from a guy called William Bullman, who's really, really big on astral travel and doing it through the pineal gland. And generally, when I get quiet for long enough, I can tune into non-physical energy quite easily. And I was doing this process every single night for about 4 months of basically astral traveling. And a couple of times I actually managed to lift out my body and then slam straight back down again. And I was like, oh, why is this not happening? No, it's not like I was trying to force it. I was doing the process just very much like. And after about 4 months, I thought, this is not happening for a reason. And I don't know what the reason is, but I'm just going to park it, because nothing's happened after 4 months. And I did do it sort of infrequently for a few months after. And then when I came across what you shared about it actually being a control structure, it took me straight back to those few months in 2022 when I'd attempted that. And I was like, oh, that's why it didn't work. Because my greater being and the trueness of who I am was going, Franco, as in this ego construct, you don't need that, son.
True.
It's not for you. That's not your path. You've been there, done that.
Been there,
You're
done
ready
that.
to come
Yep.
back to you're ready to come back to the natural way of life and the natural way of love and be from the heart, soul, essence, and love. And that's why I found
Yeah.
it so easy to let go of all of it when I first heard you say it, George, because there was zero resistance
Yeah.
at all. And now I know why, because this is where I'm at in my journey, because I'm ready to come back to the natural way of life and love.
Oh, you
But
are, brother.
and I've shared this subsequently with a lot of people. Some people are a bit resistant but curious. Some people are super defensive,
Mm-hmm.
and some people, a couple of people, my partner being one of them, have gone, oh, oh, that's interesting. I kind of feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, it's
yeah,
basically the two
tell us about
camps is
that control
basically,
mechanisms.
yeah, basically the two camps is, the people who have really invested themselves. That's what I find, whether it's a religious ideology, whether it's even just a meditation process, whether it's your favorite rock band or your favorite food. It's like, how much of yourself are you investing into that, whatever's stimulating you in that way? And when we invest ourselves into one of these ideologies and belief systems, we identify ourselves through that identity. Oh, I'm a Christian, and Islam and Allah, and Jesus, and or it's all about Yahweh, or I forgot the name. Eloi, I think Eloi is the name for Eloi. I think is like, it has to do with the L's, with the Elohim. Anyway, it's another name out there for that entity and that energy and those entities, basically, known as the Elohim. Can you ask me that question direct again? I seem to have, because I work with energy, and I just want to. Yeah.
No problem, George.
Just ask me that question directly, real direct and real short.
Sure. So the chakras, Kundalini, and the pineal gland are actually implants, technologies to keep us in that imperial synthetic construct. Now, for most people, a lot of people hearing this will be hearing that for the first time. So I would love you to explain the story behind that. And, the story I just shared about why it didn't work for me was obviously because my greater being was ready for me in this point of incarnation to let go of all that. Because those technologies actually come from the Anunnaki and the Atlanteans. And I would love for you to explain to the audience what it is, why it was implanted in us, and what it actually does, and why it's wise to let go of it, if you're ready to do that.
Yeah, well, it is wise to transcend those technologies, that's for sure. And I know that from living experience. So I'm feeling into where I begin with this. It's like, how far back through time do I go? What's my starting point in explaining it? Because the Anunnaki came here about 348,000 years ago, first up. And so they've been tinkering since then, and doing a lot of biological experiments. And the Atlans came about 70,000 years ago, somewhere there. And we're talking about massive expanses of time, but they're also here in different dimensions. And then with the harmonic convergence, the fractal process and the harmonic convergence coming, with all dimensions compressing and, merging, integrating as one. The two empires met. So it's kind of like, at the moment, we see Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or the Yowies here in Australia just bleed through into our realm and then disappear again. That's how it started for them, the two empires. They lived in different dimensions of frequency because they came from different dimensions of frequency. The Atlans came from certain dimensions. The Anunnaki came from other dimensions. They came, and over time, leveled up, right? The dimensions. And then the two empires saw each other, tried to figure out what was going on, and then they ended up going to war with each other. Typical empires. What else do they know except war?
Imperial empires tend to do, yeah.
And And they fought, and then they destroyed a lot of what's on the planet. There's leftover remnants you can see. Deserts are the result, were created, if you want to know where deserts come from. Deserts were created because of the weaponry that was used in this conflict. Deserts didn't used to exist on our planet prior to the conflict. Post-conflict, deserts appeared. Why? Because they used weapons like a weapon that is capable of eliminating all carbon life forms and only living silica-based life.
I immediately think of the Sahara. That's huge.
Correct. Imagine what was there. And even under the sands, you would be amazed. The complexes that exist under desert sands. Right? You think there's a lot under the oceans? Think of the desert sands like oceans of sand, right? Underneath those oceans of sand are cities, complexes. Amazing. Everything's kept quiet at the moment about it. But anyway, and so these two empires came, and then eventually after the war was ended, whoever was left in the way of, the leaders sat around the table and, they're comparing notes, and they're like, okay, these humanoid species that we're all fighting, trying to get control of, what do you guys got? Oh, we came up with the chakras, the Atlanteans are going, and the Anunnaki, the Atlanteans are like, well, what do you guys have got? And the Anunnaki's like, oh, we got the Kundalini we designed and the pineal gland. So the Kundalini and the pineal gland is Anunnaki technology. The chakras are Atlantean technology. And the two empires merged and became one. And now we have a three-way imperial control system that has been infused into our physiology over millennia. And then what you do is, because you're a cosmic conqueror, you're an empire, and you want to assimilate that planetary population into your imperial structure. So what you do is you infuse the species that you want to control with the technologies that you've designed, that you reckon are going to work on this particular species. And then what you do is you provide them with narrative, right? Narrative, literature, yeah? And what that narrative does is it's really cleverly designed for that species to now venerate and even worship that technology. Because when you do that, now you've overridden free will. Because now people are lovingly, willingly wanting to engage with those technologies. So now you're not violating universal law. So you think you're not. Like, it's a self-delusion. So now the imperial leaders are self-deluded into believing that they're not violating universal law. Right? They still are, but they're just doing it in a more clandestine way. But they believe within their own minds, self-deluded minds, that they've gotten around universal law. And they haven't really. They're just creating more karma for themselves.
Yeah.
Fascinating, isn't it? And, the pineal gland is a piezoelectric device, and it's a stack of square crystals. So you tell me anywhere else in the body that you have literally a stack of square crystals, one on top of each other, perfectly square, right? Tell me where else that happens in the body. Like, you don't get square crystals, flat square crystals. No, that's manufactured, right? That doesn't happen in nature. And the pineal gland was infused into the physiology. They experimented on some animals to begin with, before they started infusing it into the human or what we call human now, and yeah, people, it's not what you think it is. So this is my first eye, is my heart soul essence. This is my first eye. See, I see through the eye of my heart and my soul, and I see through that unified field. If you want to connect to the ability to be one with the universe and to see the universe, to experience the universe, then you do it from inside of yourself in your heart soul essence. Your soul is like the portal and the gateway to the unified field. Whatever you do from this space here, that's all empty calories, that's sugar, that's where all the mind control and consciousness control comes in from, right? But from here, you're solid, because you're operating from your core. and what you're connected to in the way of your relationship with creation itself. It's the true oneness.
Yeah. I can attest to that, because when I started really deep meditating about 6 years ago, of course, I was oblivious to all this.
Mm.
And you listen to, I was listening to all kinds of people who have meditation channels. Of course, everyone's talking about chakras and pineal, and I used to try and, because again, I was just ignorant of what was going on, and I used to try and force this connection to all that is through the pineal, and I don't know, I never really felt it, and I could always feel from here
Mm.
everything I was experiencing as I learned to get my mind quieter, and the chatter became less and less, and I became more integrated with the wholeness of who I am.
Mm.
I found more and more that my experience always came from here. And, and again, I reference my partner a lot because her and I have these conversations all the time. But she said to me a few months ago, she said, yeah, you've always, always, always had your experiences from the heart as long as I've known you. And she's known me for about 5 years. Said, like, you've always experienced your most powerful journeys from the heart. He says, whereas I was always traditionally much more pineal gland. And she says, one thing I've really noticed about you, and I thought, isn't that interesting? And that's not to boast or brag or anything, or what's that expression you used? Oh, the Australian expression, fig jam, is that right?
Fig
Yeah,
jam.
it's not to fig jam. It's not to fig jam. I love that. It's not to fig jam. It's ask me privately, anyone who doesn't know, because I'm not going to repeat it on the channel. Fuck, I'm good.
Just ask me.
Okay, I did. Yeah. And, as I was saying earlier on, for me, it's a really lovely, comforting confirmation of where I'm at in my journey in this life, because I used to experience, and I still do, even much more so now, since I've transcended and closed my contracts with the chakras, pineal, and Kundalini system, and always have done. And I'm so glad you were open to sharing that, George, because
thanks, bro.
anybody listening to this, there's going to be one of three reactions. There's going to be F off, you stupid people. This is just nonsense. That's fine.
Yeah.
Fine. There's going to be some people like my friend I was talking about, who I have the regular chats with, who's going to go, but you know what? There's something in that. And it's interesting, like 4 or 5 months after we had the first chat about that, she's now much more open to it. In fact, she just bought your book.
Oh, really?
Because one of her other friends, completely independently of me, said, you really need to read this Our Universal Journey book by George Kay. And she went, is that what you talk about? And I went, isn't that funny? You are obviously ready on some level, because if your random friend random to me, I've never met before, has said that to you, and I've been saying the same thing with the information from the same person, that tells me that in here, in your greater being's telling you, follow that thread. And she is, to be fair to her, which is lovely.
True that.
And then, of course, it's wonderful. And then, of course, there's people who reacted like me and my partner, who were just like, oh, yeah, of course, yeah. But whatever your response is, it doesn't really matter. But I just think it's really important that people become aware of the reality of what's going on with that, because that is what really keeps us trapped, like way beyond this physical incarnation, in the false imperial narrative, which is part of that. How you've I think you've described so well, George, as the 3 levels of imposition, because the matrix level isn't just here on this earth. It goes way
we are
that people can't imagine.
We are inside a multi-dimensional consciousness control structure.
That's nuts. That's, even you just saying that, I'm like, wow, that's nuts.
That's the truth. It's what we're inside of. So if you want to break free, there's only one way out of it. There's only one way out, and that's to turn inward. And, if we are to share some of the actual messages of the actual Christ that made it through the Bible, there are some phrases there that are from the actual Christ. And, you know, the kingdom of heaven is within. Know thyself, you know. What do you reckon that's all about? So if you understand the extent of those phrases, like it might be a short phrase, but it speaks volumes upon volumes upon volumes, you know, each one of those phrases. So it's really going deep into the depths of yourself. So if you, it's basically like this: if you don't know how to turn inward and look inward and face yourself, if you don't have the internal intestinal fortitude to look inward and face yourself, then you're just going to be externalizing. You can, whether it's religion, whether it's, you know, and you can say chakras, Kundalini, Pineal Gland are inside of us, yeah, but they're implants. Their technologies have been infused into our physiology, right? This is a very deep process of control. So think of it as a more advanced version of having a chip put in your brain.
Yeah, or a pacemaker for your heart.
Yeah, instead of something like that, just think really advanced technology, ethereal implants. Yeah, just more advanced. And then we do have a biological chip in our head. It's called the pineal gland. You know, and that's what freaks people out, is because when you start to look into the extent of the control system through the pineal gland, the Kundalini, and the chakras, it's really extensive. And then and the further you go into it, the line of inquiry, you know, all your belief systems get challenged along the way in your journey into truth. So people want the truth, but then when they're faced with the truth, when it turns up, they bounce off it and go back into the matrix. Yeah. They want it, they seek it, and when it arrives, they're like, no, now they don't want it. Why? Because in order for them to embrace the truth means they have to now dismantle all their false belief systems, all the lies and all the masks they wear, because they're living their identities through these ideological systems. They're not living their true nature, turning inside out from within. They're not being authentic. So all of you that are stuck in your belief systems, you're not authentic, you're not being real, you're living a lie. You're living through a belief system, a narrative, someone else's story of who and what you should be. So when we start to get raw and real and we turn inside out, then you begin to connect to what's real in life. The only way you're going to connect to what's real in life is through what's real inside of you, within you. And by setting the reality up where this has created the situation where there's only one way out, organically, truthfully, there's only one way out of this. Yeah? Because if you don't choose that one way out, then you're going to be recycled back into the cosmic, multidimensional cosmic matrix one way or another, where you get harvested by the technological intelligence God, because now you've chosen to be assimilated in the technological singularity in one form or another. Or you get harvested by a religious God in one form or another. Right? Either way, you're going to get harvested. Yeah? So they're your only other options, or you leave the planet through the death process. So you've only got 3 options other than the true path. You've got 3 other pathways to choose from. If you cannot be strong enough to look inward and actually face yourself and come to terms with the fact that, yes, I have invested my beingness into a false narrative. I've invested into a belief system that has been fed to me, that my whole society and culture has been programmed with by, you know, through millennia. And I'm strong enough to identify that. I'm strong enough to stand in my true light and stand in the light of the false narrative and the imperial narrative. I do have that courage. And I really hope that each and every one of you listening to this will also embody that degree of courage, where you can stand in the true nature to be the guardian of who and what you truly are, and to do it with assertiveness, but graceful assertiveness. You know, I'm learning how to be the wise warrior, the peaceful warrior, you know? Peaceful warrior, yeah. Yeah, I'm learning more about that. I'm still a work in progress like everybody else, but I'm really, really working on that. And so when you get to that point of self-realization, that you're actually going to be honest with yourself to the degree that you can literally admit, Oh, wow. Yes, I have. It's true. I have literally invested my identity, and I'm living my identity through, well, let's say I'm a Christian. So all of a sudden you're in a cult. It's called the cult of personality, which is the cult of Jesus, right? It's idolatry. It's not conscious relationship with Christ. It's a religious ideological program, a narrative that's been given to you by empire, and everybody's worshipping this Jesus persona, which will come and save you. Don't you worry. If you cannot identify the reality of that, and you want to still be immersed in the lie of that, whether it's Allah, whether it's Krishna, whether it's, doesn't matter what your thing is, what your idolatry is, yeah, when you live and identify yourself through that idolatry. And that's the problem that's befallen all of our spiritual world, is it's one form of idolatry or another, and that's really, really sad. And it's always built on subservience too. So once you come to terms with the fact of what's actually happened to you, it's like, how can an alcoholic transcend alcoholism, the addiction of alcohol, if that individual is not willing to admit that it is an alcoholic to begin with, right? There's no way you can transcend it. So it's the same with religion. Until you admit and come to terms with the fact that you have been hoodwinked by empire and you have invested yourself into a false narrative that isn't true. It exists, it is real, but the story of it is not true, right? Then you have invested in a lie, then that's your choice. You can continue to do that. Nobody has to go where I'm going. I am bringing to your awareness, though, what you're doing. Okay? At least now you have an informed decision. And if you choose to be subservient and worship this entity that has been presented to you by empire, and that version of Christ, right, which is exactly what Christ warned us about. Warned us about the Pharisees, their deity, and their ways, right? Christ warned us clearly about that, right? So what is every Christian on the planet doing right now? They're worshipping the version of Christ the Pharisees have given to them, and they're worshipping the deity of the Pharisees.
The ancient warlord.
That's what everyone's doing. That's the reality of it. They're not in conscious relationship with Christ. They're in conscious relationship with the Jesus version of the Christ that the Pharisees have presented to the masses, which is exactly what Christ warned us about. So the truth of the matter is, the God in the Bible is the true demiurge, right? The true Satan, Al-Satan, the opposer, because that entity is in full opposition to the natural way of love and the natural way of life and the natural way of light.
Yeah.
Yeah? It presents its version of reality, and people are buying into that. Yeah? They're not living conscious relationship, right? Through their heart, soul, essence with creation itself. People are not doing that. They're taking information in here, what's fed into this space. And remember, whatever you put into this space here then becomes the lenses that you perceive reality through. So if you're just into biblical narratives and Bible studies, then you're inside that little bubble of narrative. Now you are worshipping in that space. And if you grew up in Arabia, then you're full on into Allah and Muhammad. You grew up in India, you'd be someone who'd be full on into Shiva and Krishna, whatever. Yeah, because it's the way you operate. So it doesn't matter what country, what culture you land in, you're going to end up doing the same shit, right? You are, right? It's just that you're in the Western culture, now you're addicted to Jesus. Like I said, if you take the way you're operating and plonk that into any other culture, you're going to do the same thing, just be addicted to the religious narrative of that culture. Okay, so it's not about whether the Islam is right, whether Christian is right or wrong, whether, you know, Judaism is right or wrong, or Hinduism, or Zoroastrianism, or Sufism, or, right? Come on, let's get real, right? It's about the modus operandi of the individual. So it doesn't matter what culture you would have been born into, you would have been doing the same old crap anyway, just with a different story. But it's the same game. It's the same psychological operation. It's the same multidimensional consciousness control structure imposing itself. It just has a different flavor because it is a different mindset, because it is a different culture. So instead of calling something, you know, like Krishna, we call it Jesus. It's all the same. It's about worshipping. It's about subservience and worshipping.
Yeah. And nothing could be further from the truth of who and what we truly are, which is something I'm not just seeing, but understanding and feeling so
Oh,
much
mate.
more as I go through my journey in this incarnation. And I know that I'm like 0.0000000000001% of what's really going on. And even that tiny
Mm.
quantum size slice of awareness has been so transformational for me in this life so far.
Well, you see, the thing
So
is, you know, because I do want to get back to what you're about to say, because I could feel where you're headed. I just want to say that who and what we are as a species is so much greater than what we've been led to believe. And the more you go into the journey into what's real, because it's like I'm a knight of old, right? I am a knight of old, and I'm on this quest, this very unique quest, because I question everything. And the word question, quest, on. Break up the word question into 3 separate statements, right? Quest, on. I am on a quest for the truth, and it's a noble quest because I question everything, which means I question everything within. I question all of my belief systems. It's not just me sitting in my own, self-deluded ego questioning everything outside of myself, and I don't question anything within. What is that? That is serious self-delusion, right? That's egoic insanity. So what we've got to do is we've got to question everything within ourselves first, all our belief systems, all our ideologies, and look at where we're investing our identity through. And I've decided to, because when you go down this path, you begin to very quickly see, and all your belief systems get challenged along the way, because you've got to get rid of all those masks, those layers, to get to what's real inside of you. Once you get to what's real inside of you, you begin to get to what's real in life, in reality. And you can only access what's real through what's real in you. Okay? Now, this is the amazing thing is, this is our actual natural evolution. You begin to realize, hang on a minute, we're these really incredible beings. We're universal fractals. And we have gods out there that are so jealous of us.
yeah,
So jealous of us. They're freaking out because you have babies being born in this world through our natural fractal structure that have access to more life force, universally speaking, than any of the gods ever will. Right? It's amazing. And as long as someone attributes creation to those 3 letters, the God, in that sequence, every time you utter those words, you are now opening a portal and you're attributing the power of creation to the deity of the Pharisees. Because they're the ones that gave you those 3 letters in that sequence. And you've got to understand that you're dealing with sorcerers. You're dealing with magic and you're dealing with spells. You're dealing with runes. You're dealing with logos and the ability to manipulate logos. So every time someone goes OMG, cha-king,
yeah.
for the God entity.
I was just thinking that.
Because it's another big deposit of energy attributing the power of creation to that entity.
Yeah.
And you begin to see. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's even if you're not religious. Even just saying that OMG, even if there's no religious intent behind it, it's doing the same thing.
Correct. Because you uttered that word. You pronounced a vibrational pattern. That pattern opens up a portal and contributes the power of creation to that entity in that moment every time you utter that word. So people don't understand how when a cosmic conqueror, when a being that wants to deceive you, that's been around the cosmos for a long time, the kind of tactics that they use. They're so clever, and they have you hoodwinked without you even realizing it, right? And this is why when someone like me comes along and just delivers the raw reality, my energy can feel so abrasive and can be really painful. It really hurts. You know why? Because I've got the sword and I'm penetrating through all your lies, all your masks, right? And all the falseness that you live through. And when that sword of truth, when actual logos hits you, it hurts. And I've had that happen to me throughout my life, and that's what taught me beautiful lessons, because I became to realize every time I felt that pain, I had the choice. Do I dig my heels in and defend the belief system, or do I actually listen to what life is trying to tell me and come to the realization that, oh, I do have another layer of mask. I do have another level of living a lie, invested into a belief system, identifying myself through that. I have to now deconstruct that. I need to embrace that, alchemize it, pull all the wisdom that I can out of it, and totally dissolve it and integrate it back into my being. So now I can be clearer, I can be freer. Now I can go on to my next adventure and find out what I need to alchemize next. You know? I hope that answers your question a bit.
It really does, George. Yeah, thanks ever so much. And I feel like our conversation is just like an aperitif, but we're coming on for a couple of hours, so I'm going to have to think about wrapping up, unfortunately.
All right.
But you
Well,
know,
it has been.
I could,
It
yeah,
has been
and
that. It
I
has
could,
been an aperitif, although we did get into the entree and we did serve some of the main meal bites in the entree.
little
We dropped
bite-sized
some.
bits.
Well, I
Yeah,
dropped some massive bombs. Let's get honest about it. I just did it in a way that was different today, and
yeah. Well, you did, but given that you know I've worked with you since last
mm,
summer, and even that's just a tiny slice
mm,
of the stuff that you share. You know, trust me, for everybody listening, this incredible conversation really has just been a little
yes,
like canapes, really nice canapes at a really good cocktail party. But George,
mm,
one thing I always do at the end of the conversation is
mm,
ask three quick fire questions. But before I do that,
mm.
what's one final thing that you'd love to share with the superliminal audience for one really powerful takeaway for them?
With all the madness going on in the world, what's happening is Mama Sophia, the planet herself, and Helios, the sun, the solar being, together are working a giant conspiracy on a creational level to the sun. The job of the sun, its purpose for existing, is to illuminate all shadow. Okay? You go in the sunlight, you stand in the sun, you look down, you see a distinct shadow. You go to other worlds, you don't get that shadow. You go to other star systems, you don't get that shadow. Okay? It's the way the sun's structured and the way the light emanates from it. So gods hate the sun because when they come here, the sun brings out their shadow and they can't handle it. And they get really dark and evil. Like Yahweh did. And they just hate on the sun because they get exposed from it. Because the sun is, through the fractal nature, all of the light of the universe manifested in physical form in one single space-time location. So I'm talking about the structure of a creation, right? Who and what the sun is. And so what we're faced with now is your madness is going to come out. See, if we don't look inward, that's what the whole evolutionary path is as the cycle is closing now. We're all being forced to look inward. The world outside is going mad. The madness is coming out. It's coming out in everyone and everything. All distortions are coming to the surface. This is the apocalypse. You're living the apocalypse. We're in it. And you have to live your own personal apocalypse as well as the collective. Yeah? So all is being revealed inside of you, that which is not real. All the masks, all the lies, all the mind control, the illusion that you live through. So that's all being revealed. It's coming out to the surface. So look inward Because out there's going to be nothing left for you. You're going to be, unless you buy into one of the narratives out there, one of the belief systems, one of those, and you want to continue to live a lie and wear a mask, that's fine. That's your journey. It's up to you. I can't do that anymore. I've got to be raw and real now. So you're only left to go inward, because out there is so messy, confusing. You don't know what's what, who's up, what's down, what's back the front, the other way around. And it's going to get worse. Like the madness, it's only just beginning. So it's going to be really crazy out there. And people are going to be forced inwards. It's the only alternative path, except being harvested by, mind control or consciousness control in one form or another. So your madness will come out. And you need to be aware of that, and you need to tend to that. You need to address that. And the world is going to go mad. And the people that refuse to look inward are going to go more mad. They'll be driven psychotic. They'll be driven insane. I've been talking about this for years. Now we're seeing, like in the UK there, the government and other places here in Australia, our governments are going mad. Look what's happening in the US with the whole cabal situation and versus the white hats and all that. So we're seeing the madness in empire coming out, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse, because the people that live and operate in all of these systems, they don't look inward. They don't look inward. Okay, so they're going to be embodying a great deal of madness, and you can see the psychosis coming out in all governments all around the world, and it's going to get worse, right? And like, how can you possibly have a father going to rescue his daughter from a rape den, right? And he's the one that gets arrested, right? So you're seeing an inversion of all that is good, the values, the virtues, the morality of the structure of society and life. Everything's being inverted because that madness, the psychosis, is coming out. Okay, so turn inward, look inward. The kingdom of heaven is within. This is the message. Whether it's Christ in the masculine or the feminine, look inward. Mama Sophia, Christ Sophia, she's holding you, so you can turn inward. She's here to support you through this whole process. That's the purpose of her existence. Yeah, is to facilitate all of this. So go inward, turn inward, and you will see all the answers. And you're so much greater than you've been led to believe. So much greater. And just know that no matter how much darkness infects us, no matter how much darkness infects each one of us to varying degrees, right? Because we have our own journey. But each one of us, deep down inside of ourselves, each one of us, no matter how bad life gets, no matter what the challenges are, no matter what circumstances you find yourself in, each one of us deep down inside, we have the capacity, we have the skills, the knowledge and the wisdom and the love to come back from that inside of us. No matter what your circumstances are, you have that inside of you.
Beautifully said, George. It's so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's a really, really wonderful way to top the conversation off. So, finally, one of my favorite bits is the 3 quick fire questions. So, firstly, George, what are you most excited about right now?
Oh, I've got to say love right now.
Oh,
Without going into
I love
detail,
that.
just love. Yeah, life is beautiful. It's gorgeous. And
Wow,
yeah, yeah,
great.
life's good.
And second one, imagine that you've just jumped into a time machine. You can more than most people. You go back in time and the doors open, and there's 12-year-old George Kavassilis stood in front of you. What
Mm.
2 pieces of advice would you give that young boy?
Oh, through all the judgment, persecution, and ridicule, hold strong, stay steady, believe in your heart, believe in yourself, and you're going to come through it. No matter what anyone says, you know what is real inside of you. The other one is when your intuition is operating, it's very deep and it's very subtle. Learn to listen better to that deep, subtle voice and learn to trust it.
Beautiful. And finally, what would you say the What would you say the biggest thing wrong in the world is right now, and what would you do to solve it? It's a huge question.
The biggest problem we have
So,
in the world right now, uh, it's two that work together, right? The biggest problem we have in the world right now is religion,
yeah,
without a doubt. And religion comes in many forms. Even the eugenicists like Fauci and co, you know, Gates and the World Economic Forum, they're in a religious cult. I don't know if you know that, but they are deeply in a religious cult. Remember I talked about the religion of scientism?
absolutely.
They're an offshoot of that religion into a very deep, dark cult. And they have their religious ideologies deeply steeped in religion. Oh, you know, like their religion, different to like Christian religion or Islam or anything like that. But there's overlapping that occurs between their religion and those religions, believe it or not. So, and what is that? That's mind control. So mind control is the biggest problem on the planet. Why? Because religion is the biggest problem on the planet that we have. Yeah. And the religion working in conjunction with the military, or so the military within itself is not bad. These are genuine warriors that want to protect and, you know, and look after things. No, we have a war machine. So when you have an entity who's an ancient Draco warlord who's risen to the top of an empire, who now comes and takes over the world, like the evidence for our solar system being invaded by a force is everywhere, including on our planet. It's everywhere. It's even in our genetics. So that happened quite a few thousand years ago. And this warlord has taken over. It's been inseminating into the human collective narrative over millennia and implementing them quite forcefully, Spanish Inquisition being one of those, right? For an example, Exhibit A. and this is an ancient warlord. So what do we have? We have religion, we have mind control, and we have conflict. Constantly. The war machine has been ravaging this planet for millennia. Right? Why? Because the god of religion is an ancient warlord, and he comes here and postulates himself to be the creator of all that is and all that exists. Do you know how insane that is? First of all, it's not the creator of this universe, and second of all, beyond this universe, life is infinite. Our universe floats in the ocean of the infinite, right? And life itself has never been created. So the infinite nature of life is life. It just is. It's never been created. Always has been, always will be. There's no beginning to life and there's no end to life. It just is. So here you have this being that comes and postulates itself to be the creator of all that is and all that is. And it's a warlord. You know, and if you want the proof, outright proof of that, just read your Bible. That's all you got to do, is actually read the Bible, not look at the words and take it in through the programmed ideology that the priest or whoever has programmed. So when you're reading it, you're perceiving it. Are you perceiving it naturally? Or you are perceiving it through the lenses? You're reading through the lenses of the mind control that you're being programmed with. So as you read those words, you're having a completely distorted and twisted perspective of those words, and you're not actually seeing and feeling and experiencing the words for what they actually are. So the way the mind control works is, I can tell you that this is a beautiful coaster that I made, and it's out of Jarrah, right? Beautiful hardwood here in Australia, right? Amazing, amazing intelligence that and existence, right? But someone could say, no, this is a stone coaster. It's made of stone. And you can look at that and you can tell everybody, the whole crowd, this is made of stone. It's like hypnotherapists, right? Have you seen people on stage, they hypnotize them?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fully convinced that that is reality, what they're experiencing, fully immersed in that, right? And I know because I've been through processes of working for organizations in the secret space program, and they use all those techniques in there and more, way more, really advanced programs of mind control, consciousness control. Even if we go out on a mission as a team, we get together and we link our consciousness to create our hive mind as a group. Because if our tech goes down, we need to still be able to communicate. Do you get what I'm saying? You want to be in real-time communication in your hive mind with a group, and nothing get into that space. So, you know, you got to realize that everybody's in mind control. You're all mind controlled. Every single one of us is mind controlled. If you cannot come to the terms with the fact of reality that you're mind controlled, you're never going to transcend the matrix, ever. Because you cannot, for whatever reason, in your own distorted ego, cannot come to terms with the fact of reality that you are deeply, deeply, deeply mind controlled. And I'm still working my way out of that. As much as I know and as much as I see, I'm not fully emancipated and liberated yet. I'm being honest with myself, and I'm being honest with you. Yeah, I'm not here for tomfoolery. I don't self-delude myself into believing I'm some magnificently awakened being. No, absolutely not. You know, I'm still in the trenches with you all, and that's just the reality of it.
Right. Thanks, George. And it is such a powerful one for me, because sometimes I forget just how entrenched I still am in the mind control program, how deep within the Stockholm syndrome I still am. I mean, all the big stuff, a lot of the big stuff, yes, I've worked on that, but there's still so many smaller level things that I don't even realize until I really sit and get quiet. So I love that you shared that as the final point, because as you say, it's the only way we can come back to this and go back to what is
It's only one
real.
way
So
out. That's the way this reality was designed. If you want out of the matrix,
yeah,
you have to go in there, because there's a key. There's, like, each one of us has a portal, a doorway to open, that we can open to exit the matrix. Each one of us has a key, and that key is the frequency in your heart. So my key cannot open your door, and your key cannot open my door. My key cannot open anyone else's door. So it's the individual, and only your key can open your door, your portal, which means only the frequency of your heart can open up that portal for you to go into these, you know, more integrated, more unified dimensions of life. Notice I didn't say higher or lower. That's another trick that they're playing on you. That's the hierarchical model, up and down, right? So true spirituality is all about integrating back into unity, into love, to harmony. So we're all mind controlled, whether you want to admit to that or not. You're mind controlled, whether you like me saying that or not. It's the truth, and it just comes down to you whether you're strong enough to actually admit it, or you're going to be weak, dig your heels in, and defend your distorted ego. And I just got the sword out on you, because it needs to happen. We need that push. We need that nudge. My mentors do this to me. It's great. My mentors know how to be real. My friends know how to be real. All my friends, all my bros. Yeah, we don't pretend. We're just real with each other. And that's what I love. I've got a massive group of people around me, really tight. And we sit with each other and we nut things out. And when any of us are starting to behave really strangely or whatever, we call it out, and we sit down together as a group and we talk about it. Yeah, that's being real. Yeah, and you sit and you listen. You let people express what they see about you, and I listen all the time. And I've been doing this for most of my life, so I get it, the process, right? I teach it. So you know, if you're not willing to listen to what people have to say, and sure, people are going to project all their crap at you as well. There's going to be all projections happening left, right, and center. That's that's something else. Even though they're interwoven, but the truth of the matter is, we're all mind controlled, and you've got to be able to come to terms with that reality. It's a fact of reality, and we're all inside of a multi-dimensional consciousness control structure. So if you can't come to terms with that reality, then you're never going to leave the matrix. You're just going to be recycled in to a new version, or the grass is greener over the other side of that fence. Oh, but it's still a paddock, and you're still being farmed.
Yeah, we're still within the construct. And the one thing, just to close off, George, the one thing I always say to everybody is that, for me, it's actually far easier in the medium to long term to go inside, do the work, heal your trauma, understand, feel and realize that yes, we are controlled. Yes, we are running all these things. But actually, what started me on my path consciously in my late 20s, I just wanted an easy life. And I don't mean
Mm.
just sitting around doing nothing. I mean an easy life on the inside. And it's actually easier overall to do the work in the way that you've described than it is to keep resisting it. And this is like what I don't
Right?
understand when I have these
Mm.
conversations with
Mm.
people
Mm.
is you're actually creating a second, third, and fourth job for yourself by constantly being in your ego and
Mm.
constantly resisting
That's a
all the
great
time.
analogy.
And, and it's a great point you raised by saying that, yeah, people will project their crap, but all you have to do is tune into your own heart and surround yourself with people
Mm.
that you trust, who are on the same wavelength, who will do that. And like you, I'm very fortunate to have a small, very tight group of people who will call me out on my BS, and I encourage them to as well, even though sometimes my ego goes, no, but it's true. But fundamentally, it's easier to do the work and heal yourself and come back to the natural way of life and back to the natural way of love. It's that really is that simple. So,
Yeah.
George, I want to thank you so much again. I feel like we've just got started,
Yeah,
but
we
yeah, I'm
did,
going to have
didn't
to
we?
end there.
Just scratching the surface.
Yeah, yeah, only just it's always like, right, where's the waiter? Can we
Yeah.
order our main course now, please? But anyway, so just before we finish up, George, what have you got coming up in terms of workshops? You've got a new book, I believe, that's still in progress. Where can
Oh,
people find your work?
here's me going to sit down to write a book, move to this place to write the book. Do you think I've written anything? What is it? 7 months, 8 months I've been living here now. It hasn't happened
Funny.
because, yeah, you have intentions, you go somewhere to do something, but then something completely different takes place. And you know what? I love that because it's embracing the fun in the mystery of life.
I love that. What a
Yeah,
lovely
because I'm not
expression.
obsessed with, I'm not a control freak. So it's like, for me, in the flow state. When you're in the flow state, it's like you're moving through time and space, and you're open to all possibilities and outcomes. Right? That's what you do. You don't try and control anything. And then as they turn up, then you manage, and it's like you're flowing in this river of life. It's really beautiful. So yeah, sorry, I lost my way. I got caught up in that flow in that river.
No, is it well because you were in flow? That's why. No, where can people find your work? What have you got? Any
Yeah,
workshops or
yeah.
programs or anything have you got
Um,
coming up?
yeah. So ourjourneyhome.earth. So that's ourjourneyhome.earth is the website. And pretty much once you go there, everything will stem from there. And I
Yeah.
do courses like Transcending the God Matrix, which I'm in the middle of running now. Tomorrow's session number 4. It's a 6-week course. And then after that, I'm going to open up to reality management coming up again, the next reality management, which is my more advanced course. And you need to have done Transcending the God Matrix to be able to do reality management. And it becomes very obvious once you start getting into these courses why.
Yeah, it does.
And just for a heads up, look, Transcending the God Matrix is not for the faint of heart. Just a heads up. And there's a lot of people who deem themselves really spiritually advanced, and they come and do my course, and some of them just like, far out, I'm so way in over my head here, and they have to leave. They can't cope with it. So again, it's for the people who are not of the faint of heart. It's the people who are really done with all the BS, all the lies, and are now willing to actually look inward and get to what's real. Yeah. So they're the only people I want doing my course are those sorts of people. I don't want any tire kickers. I don't want any pretenders. I don't want any people who are lying to themselves and self-deluding themselves. And if you come in and you have a spiritual ego, you will be exposed in the first session because of the type of work we're doing. All right. So you got to check that in at the door. I have people that have come into my work, from brothers of astronauts to Vatican librarians. I got physicists. I got all sorts, astrophysicists. I got all sorts of people, single mums, grandmas, I have all walks of life doing my courses, and they absolutely love it. And every time people come in, they're totally blown away. And it's very confronting. and it can be very challenging. But the more willing you are to open up and look within yourself and get to what's real within you, then the more graceful the experience of the course and your actual alchemical and metamorphosis process will be a lot more graceful. The more you want to defend and resist, then the more painful it's going to be. And that's the same with our evolutionary process in life as well. So, yeah,
and
what's going on?
Yeah, having done both of those, I can absolutely vouch for the truth of what George has said. And one thing I will add to that as well is that I have connected with the most beautiful souls globally. You know, it really is like a family of people. And that's something that I wasn't, not that I was expecting anything, but it was one of the loveliest surprises of doing those two programs. And I will most certainly be back to do some more in the future again. But for now, George, thank you so much for everybody watching.
Oh, mate,
Thank you
thank
ever so
you.
much for sticking by, for tuning in, for listening. I implore you to take what George has shared, feel it from here, take some action on that, and do the flipping work. See, I'm even doing it myself. After all that, I let it stay. No, no, I'm taking that one back. You can't have that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, retract that.
Yeah. Like new reality, new timeline. But yeah, I can't emphasize enough just it's painful and it's confronting, but I cannot emphasize enough how rewarding it is to do the work if you're ready for that at that
Short-term
stage of your
pain for
journey.
long-term gain, isn't it?
100%, yeah,
Mm, mm,
absolutely.
mm.
And as always, please do comment, like, share, and subscribe to get this conversation to other wonderful peeps like you who would benefit from it. But for now, George, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being
Oh,
in the Superliminal Hot Seat. It is always a pleasure to speak with you, and I learn something new. Well, loads of new things every single time. So thank you, brother. It's been wonderful.
thanks, Franco. Really love and appreciate you, mate. You're a legend. Thank you.
You too, man. And yeah, thanks to everybody else watching, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.